Even after you buy your car, there are tons of other pitfalls that you can get trapped into, so we're going to talk about them in this video. First things first, paint protection film. So, when it comes to PPF, there are only two situations where I think it's worth it. First is an exotic, second is if it's gonna be a car that you know you are going to keep for a long time. That way you get the full benefit of the PPF. If it's your absolute dream car, even if it's a freaking Mustang Bullet or something, if you really love that car, you know you're gonna keep it, it's okay to put PPF on it. I personally could care less about rock chips. I'm the type of guy where I'm like, look, my cars can get repainted 15 years from now anyways because paint starts to fade then. I'm just gonna repaint it when that happens. You know, whether it was PPF'd or not doesn't matter too much to me. Now on exotic cars it makes sense because if you have like a 300 grand car and you spent 3 to 4 grand to PPF it, that is pocket change compared to the car's value. However, that price to PPF doesn't change much depending on what car you give them. Like, I think the PPF, like a 370Z, is still like 2 to 3 grand for the whole car. To PPF my Corvette costs the same as PPFing a McLaren P1, and that's because my Corvette has a whole bunch of functional vents on it. And my car is way cheaper than a P1, so value per labor wise, like how much value I'm getting out of it for how much I'm paying them for labor, I'm getting totally boned compared to someone who owns like a McLaren P1 who's gonna pay the same thing. So it's one of those things that scales a lot better for people with exotic cars from a value standpoint. A really stupid myth I want to debunk is when people say, you should PPF for resale value. Alright, yes it does increase resale value, but not enough relative to how much you paid for it. I've genuinely had to explain baby elementary math to people, full grown adults. Like one of my buddies was like, yeah, I had a Camaro, it was gonna sell for 25 grand, then I PPF'd it, it sold for 26 grand, so I made 1 grand more than if I didn't. And I was like, dude, how much did you spend to get a paint protection film? And he was like 2.8 grand. And I was like, take that 2.8 minus the 1 grand profit you did, you're actually down 1.8. If someone is trying to convince you to put PPF before selling because of resale value, which is the dumbest argument ever, they're likely just a salesman who's trying to make really good money off of someone who just doesn't know basic math. If you're about to sell a car, just get it paint corrected or get it detailed and let the next owner decide if they want to PPF it. Because another downside people don't consider when PPFing is your car needs to get paint corrected and detailed before it gets applied, because if your car already has rock chips on it, you're not going to put film on top of an already bad paint job. You're going to want to make the paint perfect first and then protect that perfect paint to keep it perfect. That's the point. So it's a lot more expensive than people realize, and if you're going to part with the car really soon, it just doesn't make sense. The next entry is something that's gonna really make people upset, but it has to be said. I think a huge money trap is buying obscure cars and not being able to take care of them properly. So this isn't just a money trap, but also philosophically, this is stupid. First off, let me say this. You can call me a gatekeeping asshole all you want, but here's the way I see it. I'm doing this for the good of future car enthusiasts by saying this. It's our duty as car enthusiasts to preserve and take care of our sports cars, our collector cars, whatever you want to call them, for future generations of car enthusiasts to enjoy. If your selfish desire to pursue clout and get a car just because it's unique, just because you're going, oh, look how quirky and unique I am, I have a really rare car, but you don't have the capability to take care of it, you are being selfish. Because here's how that works. Something like a 3000 GT VR4, those cars are just soaring up in prices right now because someone will buy it just for the sake of being unique. They won't have the money to take care of it, they won't have the patience to take care of it, and then guess what happens to that car? It ends up broken in a junkyard somewhere and rots away. And guess what that does to the rest of the remaining VR4 population? It drives their prices up even more, because the more people who get a hold of obscure and rare cars and can't take care of them, they remove even more of them from the pool, which makes the pool of remaining obscure cars even more obscure, even more rare, and even less obtainable because the prices shoot right up. This happens a lot with JDM legends like Acura NSXs, first gens, Toyota Supras, honestly all of them this is happening to. The Mark IV and back, even Mark IIIs are having this issue, RX-7s, FC FDs, the VR4s for the 3000 GTs, like I mentioned. It's tragic. This also happens with older BMW M3s or other M cars in general. And when you buy old cars or you buy rare cars, you buy obscure cars, you should not be doing it for the selfish desire of, I just want to be unique. You have to be financially ready to take care of it. Skill-wise, you need to have a skill set to take care of it. And finally, you better have the patience to deal with it. I highly recommend you should have a daily before you buy these cars. If you know that you're not going to keep one of these cars in pristine enough condition to keep it running and well enough and healthy enough for the future generations of car enthusiasts, for the next guy down the line who's going to buy it, don't buy it. Let that guy buy it. This is the one time I will side with internet car guys. There's tons of 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, blossoming car enthusiasts who grow up playing games, grow up watching movies, they're very avid about cars, and maybe they already found their dream car, and you're gonna ruin it for them because you bought it instead and you didn't take care of it. You reduced the pool, and now the car is so expensive that by the time that 12 or 14-year-old grows up and becomes an adult, they graduate college, get a paying job, they're like 22, 24, they can't afford the car anymore because you and many others who went to buy these obscure cars didn't properly take care of them and completely just destroyed its value in any sake of attainability for future generations. Don't be selfish. You have to understand the reason I'm quote-unquote gatekeeping in this particular scenario. Forged wheels. When it comes to forged wheels, this is yet again a giant trap. There are a lot of other benefits that you can gain spending that money elsewhere. For example, the 5 or 10 pounds of weight savings from getting a forged setup versus your stock cast or even flowform setup, you can lose that easily, even for free in other places. Like you could do a backseat delete, you can just start taking out panels. This is the last place you should be looking to lose weight. Like if you're an avid track enthusiast where you not only need the weight savings, but you need the strength of the forged barrel, of the forged spokes, while your car is getting beaten up on the track, all that suspension stress, all the braking, constant heat and everything, that makes sense. But if you have a daily driver that can't even go over 100 miles per hour, you really don't need a forged set of wheels. Because some people need to hear this advice, because I think some people just have really mixed up priorities. If you're spending more on your car wheels than your actual car that it's being put on, I don't get it, especially if you're taking a loan on it. Usually if you buy forged wheels, you're putting it on an exotic or you're putting it on an avid track car, autocross car. Having said that, those types of people have disposable income. By the time you're talking about buying a Ferrari and putting forged wheels on it, you're usually a pretty successful person already. You're a multi-millionaire. But when I see people do this to like Hyundai Velocitors, I'm just like, yo, dude, there's so many other financial decisions, even from a car standpoint. Like you could have put a turbo kit on it, you could have gotten a tune for it, you could have done so many other things for that like 11 grand on wheels you just spent that isn't even gonna get fully used, because a Veloster stock isn't gonna ever make use of forged wheels. I would dare say you could honestly have a 700 horsepower car and you'd still be fine on flow forms. I'm still on flow forms at 690 wheel. I'm doing fine. And I'm sure most avid track enthusiasts, even they still say, look, flow form wheels for someone on a budget or someone just starting out, or even for intermediate level track enthusiasts, that is more than good enough. For car enthusiasts who are never going to see the track and just maybe do mountain runs or very spirited at driving, forged wheels are really something you only buy honestly just for clout. If you really like the style of forge, like I said, if you're buying them for weight reduction, like you're buying an 11 grand set of wheels for your 30 grand Mustang, you have some strange sense of financial priorities. I can't tell you how to live your life at the end of the day, but I do think a lot of people sink way too much money into forged wheels because they're so obsessed with just forged and that word and the clout behind it. But that's a lot of money. By the time you're buying a forged wheel, you can make more noticeable differences by spending that money in other places. So the next entry is a very recent thing that I learned from hanging around certain people and just in general looking on Instagram and other things. And this is one that I think normal human beings of a normal sense of priorities would agree with. You should buy a garage before you buy a supercar. It's a giant money trap to buy a supercar in your young 20s if you don't have anywhere reliable to store it. Here's the reality with houses or a garage or just some property in general, whether it's a condo or something. They don't depreciate, and if they do, it's not nearly as fast. And if you fully bought it and it's your asset, even if the market is really, really bad, like obviously at the beginning of any pandemic and with our situation, or even during recessions, you already own it. If you don't have any payments on the place, you can just hold the house and eventually the market heals. Property values do heal. As for cars, it's always just kind of a crap show. When cars start depreciating, especially even exotic cars, if the Enzo starts tanking, will it ever go back up? It's just so random which car goes up in value and which car doesn't, that it's not a very sound investment or a good financial decision to prioritize many hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a vehicle as opposed to an actual property. And having a garage or having a house or just any of the like, here's the reality of it. You have a nice, safe place to store your current car, even if it's not a supercar, but someday if you will aspire to get a supercar, you've already got the house and somewhere nice to put it. I cringe when I see people who have Lamborghini Huracans parked outside an apartment complex. Yeah, it's a high-end apartment complex in downtown Atlanta. I don't care, because when it's outside like that, it gets bird crap on it. During autumn time, the leaves fall all over it and just leaves lots of residue and chemicals on it. Every time it rains, it's raining on it. Also, whenever the sun is out year-round, after 2-3 years, it's gonna start baking that nice, expensive paint job on that Lamborghini. By the time you have Lamborghinis or Ferraris, you should have a decent location to store them. Another downside of keeping your car outside is obviously it's easier to steal. It's just there for everyone to see. That's terrible from a privacy standpoint. And then the biggest downside to me personally, as someone who avidly enjoys doing the work on my own car, is that, well, you don't have a place to work on your own car. When you have a garage, not only do you have a dedicated location to store the vehicle, you have a dedicated location to also fix your vehicle, and more importantly, to also store the things that you need to fix your vehicle, because garages make nice storage places. That's definitely something that people think is really underrated. They tend to have their brains reworked, and like I said, once you actually understand how depreciation works, you're like, look, 200 grand, buy a house. If I change my mind, you could straight up sell that house for 200 grand 5 years later. You know what happens when you buy a Lamborghini for 200 grand and change your mind about it 5 years later? You'd be lucky if you even get like 70% of its value back. And like I said, someone in the comments is still gonna be like, well, some appreciate. Don't bank on it. Things always change. Cars that appreciate some years, some decades even, suddenly tank in value the next. And houses, even when the market tanks a few years, it always heals. It always comes back, because people always need a place to live. But people do not always need a flashy sports car. So do not bank on the few 1%. Stop deluding yourself. And within the 1%, most of them are vintages that appreciate. And then within the even smaller, what's left of it, aside from vintages, are finally exotic cars. Trying to hunt an exotic car specifically for the sake of appreciation is such a pipe dream that I don't recommend anyone do that financially. The final stupid thing that you can do that's a huge money trap that I myself have fallen for, that I myself have given past advice for, is when you don't mod a car with a plan. I always used to preach you should mod cars slowly, and it's a financial trap if you just try to mod a car right off the gate. And I myself broke that dumb rule, because we all know the story about my rice vet turning back into the nice vet. Having said that, the reason why this rule exists isn't just for the sake of stupid ricer and indecisive mods. It also exists from a reliability and also warranty standpoint. If you just bought a car, even if it's used, let's say it's only 2 or 3 years used, it might still be on an extended powertrain warranty. And it's one of those things where, like, I would just not mod it in the first 2 months. It's always my rule, is you just never touch a car you just bought within like 1 or 2 months, because you don't know if it has any pre-existing problems that hasn't quite shown up yet. Because let's be honest, the test drive does not unveil everything. So you've owned it for 1 or 2 months, and then you're like, okay, now I can mod it. The car hasn't had any problem. Imagine if you started modding it right away and then a major problem occurred, like a major engine failure, major powertrain failure, so transmission, whatever the heck. Guess what happens when you try to warranty claim it, or when you try to get help for it? They're gonna hang you up to dry, buddy. They're gonna look at you and say, oh, well, you did if you already put a tune on the car. Nope, that's your problem, not our problem anymore. And that's exactly why you should wait that 1 to 2 month period, because if you just bought a car and it's still on warranty, something bad happens to it during that period, you can laugh and be like, I'm safe, I got a warranty. Let's get it warranted, let's get it fixed, let's get it sorted. Once the car is sorted, then you can mod it, because now you're like, okay, now we're in the clear, this is fine. You want to make sure the car is fine. Even for brand new cars off the lot, they have a break-in period. That's one of the reasons why you shouldn't mod them right away. The second reason is also they could be a lemon, you never know. And again, if you start modding it right away, start breaking it, dealerships will hang you out to dry. Not just dealerships, any warranty provider, even third-party warranty providers, even your freaking insurance company. If you get in an accident, they're just gonna hang you out to dry. I hope that advice can help people. I hope that changed some people's perspectives on that matter. Other than that, thank you for watching, and see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.